In this episode of Rebels, the gang are on a mission to help someone who is transmitting a signal to them. When they get to the planet, they are met by a blockade from the Empire being led by Agent Kallus. The Phoenix Squadron engage in a small battle with TIE fighters and are able to fight off a few of them. Because their ships are being taken out, they are forced to retreat and also take a lot of casualties with them. After retreating, they discuss what new plan should be happening, and Rex tells them about someone who will be able to help them get through the blockade and to the planet they need to get to. Kanan has Hera go to the planet to find this person who has this ship they need, while him and Ezra go get the rest of the supplies that are needed. The planet they get to is a planet where ships cannot physically fly from. Hera's ship crash lands on a landing strip and barely is saved from falling off a cliff. It turns out that this person who saved them was an alien named Quarry, who lives on this planet and sort of collects and fixes ships that fall from the sky. He tells them he is waiting for the right pilot to come and show him in order for him to give up a ship that he has, and the only way they would have, as well as the only one that they need to return to the fleet with. Hera tells her story about why she is doing what she's doing for the rebellion, and because of this, he allows her to test drive the ship to see if she can fly it. The ship turns out to be a B-Wing, which has a combination of different elements from different ships we've seen throughout the Star Wars films and series. And Hera flies the B-Wing. While it doesn't work at first, she does manage to get it flying and working just fine. Meanwhile, Ezra and Kanan are getting supplies so they can return to the fleet, but when they do return, they find out that they are about to make their second attempt at passing the blockade. This sort of leaves limited time for Hera to get the ship and actually fly to them. And while they don't have the firepower yet, they aren't successful at first. And just at the right moment, Hera comes in to the battle with the new B-Wing, and luckily it is strong enough to take down the critical points of one of the Empire's Star Destroyers, and the rebels pass through the blockade. They drop the supplies to the people on the planet successfully and make it back to their home base. In the end of the episode, Hera does become a Phoenix leader, which is like a captain of the rebel fleet, and will become much more involved with the rebellion from this point forward than she has previously. And I also think that means our group are going to be going on much more dangerous missions as well as battles on the front line against the Empire. I did like the look of the new B-Wing ship, even it reminded me a little bit of Jango Fett's ship from Attack of the Clones. And I was kind of hoping we get to see it more in the future at some point. And I was surprised that it didn't look like the X-Wings from the original trilogy, because those models were definitely more popular used and ones we more saw in the films. But that being said, I appreciate the creators of the show bringing in one of the more lesser known ships that we have seen in the franchise, but giving him sort of a backstory that kind of fits nicely in the universe. So those are my thoughts on this week's episode. What did you think of this week's episode? And leave your comments down below, and see you next week.